welcome to the Wine Access Unfiltered podcast. It's that time of year again. Everyone is back into the swing of things. It's fall. I'm sure a lot of you are dealing with some back to school situations or back to work situations. It's kind of our time to hit reset. I know sometimes we think of the new year as being that time, but for me, it's always been the fall. And it always means that this is the moment when I'm trying to find my life again, especially post this past weekend, which, as I mentioned in the last episode, I got married. I'm officially a wife. Hooray. We did it. It's done. And now I get to feel like a human again. And part of that is finding little moments where I can have some luxury. So this episode is all about back to school, back to sanity, weeknight wine luxuries made easy. I know that sounds like a bit of a dystopian vibe, but I promise you this is going to be a possibility because I actually met my guest. I think we officially met last spring, but we got to spend a little time together in Texas in August, which was lovely at Texam. And I got to know her a little bit better. And I loved how she talked about wine. I loved how she approached the world of food. And what's really unique about our guest today is that she does both of these in the writing world incredibly well. She's written tons of books. She writes for fantastic magazines, and she does both food and wine, which is, a bit of an anomaly to do incredibly well, but she does it beautifully. So please welcome to the show our guest, Jessica Dupuy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
So I mentioned at the top that you do food and wine, which, despite the fact that we couple them together all the time, there's not a lot of writers who do both well as you do. How did that become your lane? Is that something you've always been passionate about?
It started with food. I'll be honest. I would say one kind of begat the other, if you will. So I started out doing food writing early on, just kind of as a recipe tester. Like when I first kind of got my career started, I was working for Texas Monthly Magazine, and they're one of the magazines that still have a legit fact checking department, like people who fact check everything.
Yeah.
But they didn't have it. Yeah, I know that they do exist. But they did not have a test kitchen like you would at Food and Wine or Southern Living or something like that. So they would ask a couple of people who they knew were into food and cooking and stuff, which I was, to do the fact checking for any recipes that got printed into the book. And so that's kind of where I started as a little recipe tester. I was already working there in a different capacity, but that was kind of like my side gig, which evolved into doing restaurant reviews for them. So I became a restaurant critic, and then I went freelance and started writing for not only them but other magazines. And during that time, I was given this assignment to see if there was anything good about Texas wine. This was 15 years ago. And my editor, she was an amazing food writer, but she's like, that's just not in my encyclopedia. I don't know anything about wine. And I don't know if I could tell people if it's good or not. I just know that it's here. How do we report on this? So I was like, yeah, sure. I'm a trained reporter. I can just go report on anything. And that is where kind of my palate shifted to understanding more about wine. Of course, at that time, I needed help because I didn't understand the rest of the world of wine. So to be able to tell people, yeah, this Texas stuff's pretty good or not, I started to study with sommeliers because I'd been covering restaurants and food for so long. I had a good network of support. And they taught me to taste. They got me through quartermaster sommeliers. I did certified and switched over to WSET. So now I'm kind of a nerd. But balancing the two, I would say I probably write more for magazines about wine because I also do cookbooks and things like that. So I kind of keep the food part over there. Yeah. But when it comes to food and wine, to me now, you can't have one without the other. Like wine on its own And sure, we drink it on the patio as like aperitivo or something like that. But in general, it's shared among friends and family at the table, usually when you're eating something else. So to me, they will always be both, like together.
It's refreshing to hear because I think a lot of people are sort of not in the same boat, but in a similar boat where like we all start out eating food, right? This is sort of for most of us, like that's the lane by which we find wine. And it was for me. So it's always nice to hear how people arrive at wine via food and all the different paths that that can take. But are there any tips that you have? I think for people who are like me and like others that are more food adjacent. Are any tips that you found along the way to like make that journey into wine a little easier?
For me, it's about the culture. And so like, for instance, a couple of my books are specifically about the regional culture of food. So as an example, not to try to tout my books, but let's just go for it. So let's do it. So there are two books with Southern Living that I wrote. One's called The United Tastes of Texas, and the other is The United Tastes of the South. And so this is just an example where instead of, when I worked with my editors on this, I was like, instead of doing, appetizer, entree, dessert kind of structure, let's do Texas is bigger than the entire country of France, right? And as you know, with France, like it has different regions and it was settled in different ways. And so the way we eat in Texas is different on the coast versus on the west or in the east. And so what we did was set up this book based on the regions and how they were settled. And that's why the foods are different. So to me, that's like a grounder that's exactly how we try to understand wine, right? Like Alsatian wine in France is totally different than Bordeaux. And there are reasons for that. And it's not just because of the climate. It's also how the people who settled in those areas approached wine. So all of that matters. And to me, that's what I try to bring together for people when I'm writing or when I'm talking to people is try to go a little deeper than what's just in the glass or what's on your plate. Why? Ask the why. And ultimately it kind of comes together. That's me. Everybody's different, but that's what I usually go with.
We have like a million things to get to, but I have to ask you about Texas wine.
Okay.
I've not had very much of it. I had it like a handful of things at Texon, but I've not had very much Texas wine. And people ask me.
Yeah. So it is, yes. The answer is yes. There is really great Texas wine out there. In fact, in October, it's Texas Wine Month. And one of the projects I work on with Texas Monthly still is this Vintner's Cup in which I meet with two master sommeliers and we taste, we did this in the summer, but we taste through like 250 Texas wines to try to come up with the top 12, which is hard.
That is hard. It's also a lot of wine.
It's a lot of wine, but I like to say the things you and I do are kind of, our PSAs, if you will, or like our way of giving back to society by like trying these wines out and kind of trying to figure out which are the best, and not just the best, but like what does this say about what Texas is doing, And so we did come up with quite a few and beyond the 12. And it's really exciting to see because like, as an example, I've been covering Texas wine for 15 years, but this particular competition's been going on for about 5. And it's been really interesting to see even the little bitty adjustments you can see that the producers are making towards quality. And that's happening in the vineyard and it's happening in the cellar. And definitely producers are paying attention to what the consumers want,
Yeah.
So I would say the short answer is yes, there are some wines that easily compete against the rest of the world of wine. We also have not great wines, but then so does every region,
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, are they finding sort of like their own thumbprint in the world? Because I think what I'm seeing the most in some of these other, you've got your Californias, Oregons, Washingtons, and then you kind of have the rest of the country, and every state's making wine. But what I'm seeing is sort of this like interesting bifurcation of those that are making wine that is very specific to the place. Like I think the Finger Lakes is crushing it in that department.
Perfect.
And then you see other places that are trying to emulate other regions. And I think, when I was in Michigan, we saw a lot of like there was some really great Michigan wine that was very Michigander. And then there was some wine that really was trying to be Californian. Michigan is not California. So is Texas sort of in that same boat right now where they're finding themselves, or is that still a work in progress?
It's a really good question. I would say that, certainly in the 70s, 80s, kind of while California was shining on the global sphere, all the other, even Texas, we were like, oh, well, let's do what they're doing because they're being successful with Cabernet and Chardonnay and blah, blah, blah. So we planted all those. And I would say that, Cabernet is still one of the most planted red grapes in Texas. However, I would say our top producers are the ones who a good 10 to 15 years ago said, wait a minute, we look more like the warm parts of Spain and the Mediterranean growing region. So southern France, Italy, southern Italy for sure. We should be emulating that, and I will say, I should mention, in the Vintners Cup, we had a Chardonnay that made it into the top 12. And it's the second year in a row that this producer has done great with Chardonnay. But I would say in general, that's probably not the grape we should be touting. Whereas what we do well with is Vermentino or Roussanne, Marsanne, right? These are grapes that shine in the Mediterranean. And so that is where I would look, right? So Montepulciano, Aglianico, we do really well with. So a lot of Italian varieties. Tempranillo, we've tried our hand at, but as you know, in Spain, that can vary so widely. And Portugal, let's not forget Portugal grows it too. So that can vary so widely. And it's kind of the same in Texas. But, I love what we do with Merved. I love what we do with Grenache and Syrah. So yes, we're starting to, I wouldn't say we're ever going to be like Oregon, and not to pick on Oregon, but Oregon pretty quickly came out of the gate being able to say Pinot Noir, check. Pinot Gris, check. Chardonnay, check, right? Texas is going to have more varieties that they can work with. Our growing season is what is our biggest challenge. And so it's just a matter of if we can have varieties that can adapt to that.
I'm actually very excited. I'm long on all the states making their wines and figuring out what works for them. Obviously, not every place in America is going to be able to do it, but I think if anyone can pull it off, it's going to be Texas. Fingers crossed. I think I've kept us dehydrated long enough. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the wine out at this point. For those of you who are members of the Wine Access Unfiltered Podcast Wine Club, the longest name for a podcast wine club in the history of wine clubs, we have this lovely bottle here. It's a burgundy shaped bottle with the screw top. This is Schafer-Frohlich Weiss Burgunder. I'll give you a little backstory on how this wine came to be. So as mentioned many times on this podcast since I last went, I was in Germany in the spring with our friends from German Wine Collection, who you know. And the whole trip, they were very excited about going to see this producer, Schafer-Frohlich. And they're like, Tim Frohlich, he's the guy, he's kind of quirky, doesn't really say very much, man, a few words. And I was like, all right, what's the deal with this guy? So we get there and we really do spend a lot of time there. And he doesn't say a lot, but it works for him. He's this very intense guy who this is a family business that he took over when he was 21. Everything that they do is a state. They're part of the VDP. His Rieslings can be incredibly expensive and they're incredibly hard to find. But he poured us some other things that he was making as well, one of which was a Pinot Gris and a Pinot Blanc. And I just absolutely fell in love with both of those wines. And so when I got home from the trip, I spoke with Jenna and Zach and I was like, what do you think the odds of us being able to get something like a Schafer-Frohlich Weiss Burgunder are? And they were like, yeah, I think we can definitely make that happen. So that's what we have in the glass. This is very cool. This is I don't know did you know this producer prior to me sending it your way?
Yeah, I had heard of them. But Germany to me is it's the one landscape that I really want to dig into more, but I'm probably not alone. It's an intimidating landscape simply because of the pronunciation. So
does this not inspire a lot of confidence when you see it? Weisser, Burgunder, Trocken,
Schafer-Frohlich.
Qualitätswein, like none of that seems comfy or familiar.
You know what? I will say I did do a story for Food and Wine recently about this little gold eagle and why that's important. So I will say when I see the gold eagle and everybody else, you have a certain guarantee of the quality that's inside of there. So that's my first like, hey guys, if you're nervous about German wine, go for that first and then we'll talk. But I mean, of course, there's plenty of wines that are not. But all that to say, I had not heard of them. I'm very excited to try this wine.
Good. Well, cheers. Thank you for getting up early and doing this. So Weissburgunder, I did promise a breakdown of that. So when you're in Germany, anytime you see Burgunder, that's your indication that it's Pinot. It's Pinot of some sort. There's many different Pinots in the world. As I mentioned, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir. Weisser, for those of you, Weiss, who speak a little German will know that that is going to be your white. So this is Pinot Blanc. So this is like the white Pinot. It is a white grape. It does really interesting things, I think, in this particular region and the way that he's making it. You know, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot of different expressions of Pinot Blanc out there. It can be a little boring. It's a little like Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio. It can be a little boring if allowed to be boring, but a guy like Tim Frohlich is never going to make a boring wine, especially when it comes from a grape like this. And so what I find is that this is a wine that I took it out of the fridge. And so it's ice cold, which is not the way that you should enjoy this. You should let it get down a little bit because it's crisp, it's clean, it's going to give you all the things that you want from something like, your ice cold Pinot Grigio. But when you let it warm up, it's going to start to give you all of these really interesting aromatics that are just like sun-kissed and like in the citrus, but also in like the melons, but also in the florals. And they're just little like pops of color in this like sea of ocean and probably would have been better suited like on a boat somewhere. But to me, this is like the perfect way to bring, as we mentioned at the top of the show, like a little bit of this warm weather into the fall with us. And because of the way that it's made, it's not just this like super zigzaggy, it's very electric. It has this texture to it. And I think, again, when we're talking about moving into the cooler months, this is where I love to bring texture into the equation. So hopefully you're enjoying it as well.
No, I am. I was just going to comment that I feel like the first thing that jumps out is just rocks. This is like mineral. And, Pinot Blanc to me, Weissburgunder, whichever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it.
To me, Germany, Alsace, and then like Alto Adige are my like three top areas for how I try to like figure out what it is. And like you said, it can be ho-hum, but it can also be like just such a conduit of multiple things. So from this one's so mineral driven, but you can also detect like a little bit of stone fruit under there and, obviously citrus and like lemon pith and stuff. But that's what I like. I feel like Pinot Blanc, when it is done well, to me, it can rival a lot of Chardonnay. And I love pitching it as the alternative to Chardonnay. Like, oh, it's great. You like Chablis. Okay, well, let's see if we can find something really minerally. And, I'm like, just to discover something different. And that is what this would be great as an alternate to Chablis for me.
God, I think this wine can fit into so many different places, right? Like you brought up Alto Adige, right? I think this is like, if you placed this in front of me and didn't tell me what it was, I would maybe be somewhere in like Northern Italy. Like this could be very easily an Italian white wine, with that, all that clean, fresh rock, mineral rock, all those things that you said. But I think, what's just so fun is that this wine will continue evolving. And it's just this like this deceptive simplicity is really what I love about this. And that like, I love a wine that you can sit and just drink, but then also when you have like 30 seconds to yourself, you can dive in and find like all of these other things. And, the subject of today's show is really finding these like little weeknight wine luxuries. And I think this is a perfect example of it where like it's not a wine that needs contemplation, but it's not void of it, if that makes sense.
Right. It's one that, yeah, I would certainly drink while I'm cooking, but I would also like if my neighbor comes over and it's like, and we're sitting down to hang out a little bit, I'd be like, you got to try this wine, you know?
Weeknight dinner. What does that look like in a house like yours?
Woo. So I do have two kind of like early teens. And we are one of those families, like they have activities, but I also am like all about balance. I'm like, we're not going to like stick you in like a million things. So pick one and we'll do that. But I love to cook. That's like something, as we discussed earlier, food is part of my life. And so I do try to do like square meals, at least 4 to 5 nights a week. And then it's like on the weekends, I'm like, no, I'm not cooking. I'm usually doing like a sheet pan kind of thing, like where I may roast chicken, roast vegetables and kind of like throw that in and then, serve it with some rice. Or like last night I did a beef stir fry with green bell peppers and broccoli. And then of course, it's Texas. So Taco Tuesdays always hold.
We love.
Which Taco Tuesdays take on a little bit of it's taco-ish. So it could be in a vessel like a taco, or I may make taco salad, or I may make something, but it's going to be in the Tex-Mex. There's going to be cumin and chili and things like that.
Here's where I'm struggling right now. And I feel like maybe I need your help on this. Where are you finding like meal inspiration? Because I feel like I will save things on Instagram. I've got, a million cookbooks in here that, there's only one that I ever go to. And it's the same one that I've had.
Is it the United Taste of Texas? I'm kidding.
It's not, but it should be.
I'll send it to you.
Yes, please. No, actually I actually forget what it's called, but it's a Martha Stewart one that I think it's like the real simple food, real food simple or something like that. And I've had it since I was in my 20s and they're just like really great, easy recipes. But like, where do you find recipes these days? Because I feel like I'm struggling.
Yeah, so I subscribe to like the New York Times cooking, and I'm a recipe reader. So for me, like will drop into my inbox, right? Because I'm part of this newsletter, and I'll look at them, and I have to read the recipe first before I'm like, okay, how long is it going to take me? How much prep do I have to do? And then what are the flavors involved? And I'll be honest, I feel like New York Times drops in because they have so many different contributors that they're pulling their recipes from. They usually are about 80% great. And then I just have to punch up flavor, but I like flavor. Let's see. For classics, if I'm like, how do I roast a chicken again? I go to Ina Garten. Like I've got all of her books and that's kind of a standard for me. But for new things, I travel a lot, right? So, for wine. And so I'm usually coming back with, okay, I was just in Piedmont for a week. I am going to figure out how to make, vitello tonata, which, okay, probably I'm not going to do that. But I know, like I taught myself how to make plen, like the little bitty pastas that are their mini ravioli. And and then it's also pretty basic. I'm not that exciting. I'm like, need to have, we'll probably have a rice dish one day a week. We'll probably have a pasta dish of some sort. Obviously the Taco Tuesday kind of thing. So I'm pulling from some basic that I know that's going to help honestly feed my kids because I have a son and he eats like a horse. So I need to be able to fill him up, but then it has to have heavy protein and vegetables. And then I'll work out the flavors from there.
And then where is wine fitting into the equation? Like, do you think about the wine first? Do you have wine with dinner? Is it an afterthought?
No, wine usually factors pretty heavily. And so, as I mentioned, I travel for wine. So I'm often bringing something back. So usually then it's like, gosh, I really want to open this. I was just in Sicily. I want to open this Nerello Muscalese. What's going to be good with that? Honestly, Texas is perfect because it's like we grill a lot. And I think Nerello Muscalese with like a grilled burger or steak or something like that, is perfect. And so that's where I get some of that inspiration, but I drink a lot. I love white wine. Bubbles factor in heavy for me too, where I'm like, I just want to drink this wine and I don't actually really care what I'm cooking tonight. We're just going to, even if it doesn't quite fit, but I feel like bubbles is like
That always works.
the answers all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad with bubbles. So
Yeah. No, I'm kind of like you. I mean, I obviously always have a decent amount of wine open, or at least like in a fridge ready to go. But I will, I'm not dogmatic about it, right? Like
yeah.
if something, and this is where I think people get really tripped up. They're like, oh, but like this wine isn't, like your mouth doesn't care that much. Like it's going to forgive you if it's not a
Mm-hmm.
perfect pairing. And if you want a glass of wine and it's not like the best thing together that you've ever had, like it's going to be fine. Like eventually
Yeah.
it will make its way
Yeah.
to your senses. But I do think that like maybe having some sort of, and I think this is where having wines on hand is really helpful. This is what clicked for me in my 20s was don't just buy a bottle when you need a bottle. Like this is where having a collection, and I'm using collection in quotes, this is where having a collection is really important. Even if that collection is only 5 or 6 bottles. Like
Yep.
having just like a little stash to choose from, sort of like your spice cabinet. Like this is where you can start to build your own palette. This is where you can start to understand choices, because if you don't have choices to make, then you never exercise that part of your brain.
That's really smart. And I say this to people a lot of times. I'll be like, hey, if you're on a budget and you need to go and you need to buy a budget wine, that's great. But
Mhm.
you're gonna pause more if you only have one $20 wine in your pantry and you're like, or fridge, and you're gonna be like, I don't know if I should drink it tonight. That's $20, like blah, blah, blah. If you can budget yourself and do for the month, I'm gonna buy a case of $20 wines, right?
Yeah.
Or in that way, then it's like do it all at once, get them all into your house, and let yourself feel to me, it depressurizes that Tuesday night where you're like, do I want to open it because it's the only one I have in the house, and I did spend the,
yeah,
it's like, nope, we've already budgeted that, we're checking it off, and now I can go like, oh, actually I do kind of want this white whatever, or this rosé, or red.
And like you said, they don't have to be expensive. Like if you go to Costco tomorrow and just get every Kirkland brand wine that they make, you'll be in great shape.
You're gonna be fine. Yeah, honestly, I've always been impressed with their ability to put out some decent wines. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I thought maybe we would start with a few fast dinner and wine pairing ideas. One of which is, the Costco roast chicken, or if you have time to roast a chicken. That's also great. But, a Costco roast chicken in a bag with some like veggies. I think our little Weisser Burgunder would be delicious with that. But also like the Kirkland Côte d'Aron, also great choice.
Oh yeah. If you're going to go red, I would definitely say the Kirkland Côte d'Aron is good. I am also a fan of like just a lighter style Grenache or Grenache, where it's more single variety, and I just love how the juiciness and pepperiness of that grape can go really well with a roast chicken. And then I mean, if there's I think of Central Coast Chardonnay actually for that, because I think if it's had any sort of lees contact or the lightest bit of neutral oak, it's going to be really great with how that. Oh my gosh, the natural juices of the chicken kind of come into the pan roasting and everything like that.
The skin fattiness of it too. And listen, when I unbox that chicken, there is always some side little pieces for me. And there is usually a glass of wine next to me as I'm like breaking it all down. But yeah, anytime you're talking about roast chicken, you should be thinking, Burgundy or Oregon, and whatever kind of grows
100%.
there is going to work. So whether that's a sparkling wine, whether that's Pinot, whether that's Chardonnay, whether it's Pinot Blanc, Gris, all of those things are going to be great with roast chicken. That should just be like one of those things that kind of clicks in your brain. Don't skew too heavy. Don't skew too light. Right in the middle is kind of where you want to be. I wanted to sort of mention when we were talking about the Weisser under Pinot Blanc, one of the great little wine hacks as you're trying to find wines that are in budget that, maybe aren't going to break the bank. I know a lot of people travel for wine and maybe you're going to see nicer producers, but if you do happen to go to a nice producer, if you are looking for great wines of the world, one of my favorite hacks, which is kind of what this is just buy the cheapest wine from the best producer. So if you, you've done this before. Like
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always thinking, so like I was just in Piedmont a couple of weeks ago, and I love Burlotto wine. So like Barolo, known for their Barolos, but also known for Palo Verga and Dolcetto. And
we've had Palo Verga on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, an unsung hero of Italy, in my opinion, right?
Yes.
And then even the way, so Dolcetto can kind of run the gamut in terms of style, but the way that Burlotto does it, I was like, I need a case of this because this is my weeknight wine. But also, I'd also totally serve it with a nice steak on a Saturday night. So, but that's an example where I'm like, yay, Barolo. But at the same time, you know, what do the people drink when they're living, the locals in Piedmont, what are they drinking? And honestly, it's Palo Verga and Dolcetto. So that's a perfect example of, looking through a producer's list
from a great producer. Yep, exactly.
And picking, because they're not making it as a throwaway. They want to make money off of it too. They're making it because they want it to be there.
No, and most of them with a few exceptions, like obviously like Extreme Eagle, Harlan, Opus, like they're not making a cheap wine. But a lot of your producers in Italy, even in France, they are making wines that are at an accessible price point. And a lot of it has to do with the economics, but some of it has to do with the fact that like those wines take a very long time to make. And so you kind of need something, you know, as you're waiting for, and that was sort of the philosophy behind these wines. If anyone's curious about Palo Verga, which we just sort of casually threw into the conversation, the episode with Jonah and Sarah Beer from True North Imports, that's their episode that we featured the Palo Verga on. If you want to circle back to that, it was about.
I'm going to.
Yeah, they're so fascinating because they've got this wonderful importation business based in California that specializes in both Italian and French wines. And it was Sarah that came to me and said, "I have this really cool wine. It's called Palo Verga. I think you're going to love it. It's perfect for pizza," which actually we'll talk about in a second as a great pizza wine. We obviously love a good comfort bowl, a pasta, you know, especially as the weather starts to gear up. So pasta bolognese, what's your go-to for that? I feel like we're going to be the same on this one, but go for it.
We'll probably be pretty similar. So, I mean, 100% Italian for me. And I've been spending a lot of time over there for a project. And so I apologize if I tend to skew a little Italian right now in my life, but, so Chianti Classico, I mean, Sangiovese, and for me, if we're going to go, I really like a Reserva because it's showing a little bit of age. It's showing a little bit of the structure that I want. And it's a little less, sometimes with the early vintages that are not Reserva, that, they can be great, entry level, perfect. But I'm a huge fan of like Cricciabella, Istane. I just feel like Sangiovese is such a great, it gets you where you need to go in all the right ways for, especially a weeknight dinner. It can also sparkle for a really nice experience, but it makes me happy.
It's a workhorse of a wine.
It's a workhorse. It is. Yeah.
It really it just checks so many boxes. And similarly to the Gold Eagle, which is the VDP demarcation on the German label, you can look for the Black Rooster on the Chianti Classico as, you know, a symbol that this is, again, going back to like symbols of quality. Chianti Classico, not the Chianti in the basket that your grandma might be more familiar with from the checkered tablecloth days. This is a different style. It's from the classic, the heart of the region of Chianti. Usually, always going to be predominantly Sangiovese. Occasionally, it's going to have a handful of other things thrown in there. But anytime you were talking about like a red saucy pasta, like that's kind of where your mind should be going, is like these red saucy regions, like Tuscany, which is where Sangiovese is just king. And I do think that if you are struggling with food and wine pairings and you're like, I don't know, you know, this feels like a lift for me, like Tuesday night is already crazy. I promise you, if you can listen, if you can go to Costco, I think people are going to start to think that I'm sponsored by Costco. I wish that I were sponsored by Costco. But if you can get some pasta and like a thing of sauce and like a little Chianti Classico and just put that all together in a Tuesday night. Like it's the easiest thing in the world. Also, by the way, I don't know if you've ever had them, but the Amy Lou's meatballs, have you ever had these?
No.
Oh,
Oh,
they're
just
so
pop
good.
those in the, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so here's my thing. I get like the thing of the carbone, which as you might recall from Texas, love me some
You're a
carbone.
fan. Yeah.
So I'm a fan. So I get the carbone spicy rigatoni sauce. I
Mm-hmm.
get the Amy Lou basil parmesan meatballs. I throw those in the air fryer. I heat the sauce up. I make a little pasta. I whisk it all together. I have a glass of Chianti Classico. I'm done in 20 minutes. Here we are. And I've just made
And
a delicious dinner.
absolute bliss. Yeah, you
Absolutely.
can't go wrong.
Takeout hacks. Obviously, we talked about Thai food and Riesling sort of ad nauseum on this show, but I assume you're a fan to some degree.
Of Thai food and Riesling? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, all day long. Like, I mean, it's one of the perfect
It's the best.
pairings. Absolutely. And you could, I mean, I'm trying to think if you could with some maybe veer into like some Pinot Gris from
Mhm.
Alsace, but I feel like Riesling, especially German Riesling, just has so much to offer, or maybe an off-dry Vouvray
Mhm. Yeah,
if it's a
definitely.
spicy, nice and spicy. But yeah, I think that's a easy slam dunk pairing. A lot of times I get asked the question, like, how do you go with Tex-Mex? Like, what do you pair other than a margarita?
Yes.
Right. So like if margaritas are off the table, and I think then you're looking at, again, the types of spices that are involved. So Riesling actually can be an option. Like I think a dry Riesling honestly is
Mhm.
better, but Sauvignon Blanc can actually be pretty good as well
Mm.
if it's not too steely. So I think just because, again, like how I think of the pyrazines, like jalapeno, fresh jalapeno, things like that.
Oh. Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah, and so that's always good. And then I feel like for if you're wanting red, that's where I go like lighter, easier style. So Norello Mescalese from Etna is really shining for me right now with Tex-Mex, and then also I would say like I mentioned it before, but Grenache. I think
Yeah.
it's juicy and peppery and all the things.
If there's one wine that's not in your cellar cabinet, whatever, like right now, it's probably Grenache, and it's probably the one you should run to go get. Like,
Yeah,
go to a wine store, go on Wine Access, whatever. Go get yourself a Grenache because I think it's one of those wines that can serve so many purposes and it's so versatile. And similarly to like a Chianti Classico or Sangiovese, like it is a workhorse and it
yeah,
behaves very similarly to Pinot, but it feels a little lighter in some way. Like in some ways, like Grenache is like, instead of putting on like a heavy foundation, it's like the tinted moisturizer. It just feels like
yeah.
just like an easier lift somehow.
That's
I
a
don't
real.
know.
You know what? My next article is going to be called that. I will attribute it to you, but I think that's
Great.
brilliant. Like that's a perfect way to describe it. And I think, Pinot Noir, listen, it deserves so much, but
Sure.
I think consumers can often feel intimidated by Pinot Noir because they're told of the greatness of Burgundy. And then we're also told of the greatness of what we can achieve in Sonoma Coast, et cetera. But like, or Oregon, but it can feel like you're expected to think too much about it.
Yes.
Whereas Grenache, we don't have to think about anything.
No.
It's just going to make you happy. And,
Yeah.
and at the same time, you can have creme de la creme, top of the line, beautiful Grenache from Spain or from the Rhone. But at the same time, like it's never going to make you feel like the value is there, right? In terms of the bottom dollar, but then also like the enjoyment is there.
Right.
And so I usually go when people are like, oh, which Pinot Noir should I get? I'll be like on a menu, I'll be like, do they have Grenache? Like, cause then we don't have to like overthink anything.
Right. Well, and Pinot is so specific too. Like it really cares about where it's going. And not that Grenache doesn't care, but like it just
Yeah.
feels like, it's a lift. It's committal. It's,
Yes.
it's a bit, and Grenache is just like, slap it on.
Yeah.
You look great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
you and I had a lovely sushi dinner at my
Mm.
favorite restaurant, maybe in the country, which is Uchi. For those of you,
Yay.
I don't know if I've ever talked about it in this podcast, but I was very excited when I found out that you were the writer on the Uchi book. It does not matter what city I'm in. If there is an Uchi, I'm making my way there. I've been, I think, to all of them at this point, and there's one coming to Philly. So I'm very excited. But to me, they're like all the wines in the world cannot hold a flame to sake when it comes to sushi.
Yeah.
Are you in the same camp?
I'm there too because I just love sake. And I'll be honest, like I wish I drank it on Tuesday nights. Like I wish I would push myself more. So that's where my cellar is lacking is I don't hold on to enough sakes at home because if you think about it, that's one where it's like overconsumption is not overconsumption is in your favor, but the ability to have a glass or two of sake and then that bottle is going to be okay for a couple of days in your refrigerator. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
yeah. So I feel like I'm not over consuming. And I think it goes with so much. So yes, 100% sushi. But I mean, honestly, any of the Asian dishes I make or the expression that a lot of sake can have in terms of florality and like nuanced fruit character. There's such a beautiful world to explore there. So
Yeah.
100%. But I don't get me wrong. There are a couple of really beautiful white wines. Not so much red for me with sushi.
Yeah.
But I would drink this Weissburgunder with sushi.
Totally. Yeah. It's not to say that wine can't work with sushi. It certainly does. But like there is something about the umami of sushi, and like you could probably speak to more than I can, but there is something about that combination of sake and sushi that just it does something that wine cannot. And I think to your point, it's a great hack, and it's one that I'm actually shocked that you don't keep more on hand because it's so easy. Like it doesn't go bad. Like it's one of the like I mean it does, but it does. Like I've had good sake. Not all sakes are built the same, but good sake I can keep open in the fridge for 4 to 6 weeks, and it's it might have dimmed the lights a little bit, but it's like it's still great and it's not really going anywhere. And I don't know, there's something about sake. I always feel great after I drink sake. Like I don't quite get I'm 38, so things hit a little different than they did when I was 28, but I don't quite get like the hangover. Like I don't feel hungover, but like, you get a little tinge of like something from wine where like sake, like I've had a lot of sake at night and like felt totally fine the next day. But there's some great ones. Eduardo from Wine Access, he's very sake obsessed. We've talked about it a lot on the show, and he sources some really great ones. So Wine Access is a really good resource if you're looking for good sake, because I know that can be a little bit of a challenge when you're out there in the world trying, to look for it. Like, you think German wine is hard to navigate. Sake is like a whole other, like unless you speak Japanese, good luck. Like I'm pretty lost myself. So it's a good way to find really good sakes without having to do a lot of the work, because Eduardo does such a great job sourcing them. So yes, bring more sake into your life. Let's see if we can rectify that for you.
Yeah, it's not New Year's, and this isn't a resolution, but maybe that will be my challenge. Next time I talk to you, you can ask me how many bottles of sake I have in my cellar. We'll see if I made it.
Yes, I'm willing this for you. And then last but certainly not least on the food front, I'd be remiss not to bring in some of my favorite meals via like Chipotle, Cava, all of our fast food locations. Do you have a favorite fast food?
If I'm going to get like a burger to go, like a, takeout burger, for me, I'm a rosé person with burgers, juicy burgers. So that would be it. And there's a local company and it's based in Austin called P. Terry's. And I think by default, it's become my favorite just because it's my kid's favorite for sure. So if I'm like, all right, y'all, we're picking up burgers tonight, which is not often. So they get very excited. And then they're like, it has to be P. Terry's. If we're going to go, it has to be there. So, so it's P. Terry's and rosé for me.
I like rosé. I really like rosé with burgers. I'm a Five Guys girl. I like our local spots too, but I love a Five Guys burger, especially with like the Cajun fries. And I do like it with rosé because it can be a little bit spicy, but I do tend to go like Grenache with burgers. Like that tends to be like
Fantastic. Yeah.
My go-to.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that either. I would do that. Yeah.
But I mean, please, like, do not discount fast food for those of you who are, trying to figure out your lives on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day of the week it is. Like, fast food can be delicious with wine. It is delicious with wine. And I will fully admit here on this show, I don't know what's happened in the last 6 months for me. Call it hormonal, who knows? I have like a weird, deep obsession with McDonald's chicken nuggets and French fries. I'm no longer ashamed to admit it. It is what it is.
I say it proudly. I
say it proudly, but McDonald's chicken nuggets, French fries, some sweet and sour sauce, and like a good glass of white wine, like it can cure most things for me. And I feel like I need to put that out there, because if you're in the same boat and you're feeling the same things, like just lean into it. It's really fun.
No one's gonna judge you. I love it. For us, Chick-fil-A is kind of the fried chicken place where most people go. So for me, that would be, I love the waffle fries. I don't know, something about it. So, but for me, that's 100% bubbles. Like it's going to be champagne. It's going to be, a nice cava, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. KFC and some bubbles, Chick-fil-A and some bubbles. Really anything in bubbles is going to be, again, like Grenache, like make sure you have it in your fridge, and like get your stuff with Bouchon. A Coravin is never a bad investment. We've talked about different wine preservation devices. And, if you're worried that you're not going to go through the whole bottle in a few days, like get yourself something like a Coravin, like a Repour, that will help to preserve it. The best thing that you can do is treat it like leftovers and put it back in the fridge, keep oxygen away from it, and keep it at a low temperature. So you're going to slow that rate of oxidation, because that's effectively what's breaking everything down and making it not taste as good. But, there really is no such thing as like the wine's going to go bad. It's not going to spoil, so to speak. Like
exactly.
It's not like milk that's going to go bad in your fridge. I didn't bring up pizza night, but I did bring up Pella Verga, and I would be remiss to not talk about pizza and Lambrusco.
Okay, good. I'm glad you were going to do it, because I was going to go straight there if you. If you weren't. Yeah,
it's a straight shot. I mean, there really is no better wine for pizza than Lambrusco. Pella Verga is right up there, but there is something about Lambrusco that just does it for me.
Well, it's the texture. It's having a little bit of bubbles too is great. And I'm not going to lie. Like, I like it to be a tiny bit off dry,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the sauce is off dry.
Yes. Like it's just indulgence to me, and in the most beautiful way. So I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, anytime you're talking about pizza sauce, you're generally talking about some amount of sugar, right? There is going to be a little bit of sugar. And then you've got the salty savoriness of the cheese. And so that, that juxtaposition of like an off-dry Lambrusco, in addition to the fact that you have this sauce that has a little RS, like you kind of want a little RS in your Lambrusco. I just did a video on a Lambrusco spritz with Empress gin. And so I did, instead of the Amaro, which is, so it's normally Lambrusco, Amaro, and then grapefruit juice and like a little splash of soda. Sometimes I just use the Fever Tree grapefruit sparkling. But I subbed out the Amaro, which can be a little bit on the bitter side. I subbed that out for the Empress elderflower rose gin, and it like brightened it up, and it like gave it this really beautiful floral lift, which would be super nice with a slice of pizza. So that was the pizza spritz that I made on my Instagram, if you want to pop on over and see that. Can you, so these are rapid fire listener questions. Can you pair wine with mac and cheese?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, the answer is always yes. What would I pair with it? I think for me right now, if I were going to have some mac and cheese, it's going to be a crisp white wine to kind of like cut through all the weight of that. But something with a little, I would actually might go with like a Pinot Gris from Alsace or Pinot Grigio from Alto Adige or Friuli. Friulano, I think. Okay, I'm going to go with that.
Okay, stop there. I like it. Yeah, I will say I have another deep obsession with like I love Kraft mac and cheese, but I just can't do it to myself. So I get the Goodles version. Goodles, have you seen those? It's like higher protein. I think a little. I mean, it's still, I'm sure, lots of synthetic garbage in there, but Anyway, I made that. And that's sort of their answer to Kraft mac and cheese. I had that and I had a little baby Boxbeutel of Sylvaner.
Oh, that's perfect.
It was so
Yes.
good. I was like, why do, and it was, I think the little box, so Boxbeutel, I'll maybe flash the photo in here. It looks like a circular bottle and, it's very specific to this one place in Germany, where Sylvaner sort of is the grape, as Sylvaner sort of reigns queen there. And when we were there visiting Hans Wersching, they gave us these little 250 milliliter, which is a third of a normal science bottle, a 250 Boxbeutel. And I had it in my fridge and I was making the mac and cheese. And I was like, well, this seems like a great idea. And it was so good.
That's perfect. I love that. Yeah.
Is it okay to pour weeknight wine in stemless glasses?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, we're this is Austin, Texas, so we're the home of Yeti. Yeti like coolers and coffee cups and all the other stuff. Like when we're outside at the pool, like I'm pouring it in. Yeti has a wine cup, so to speak.
No, I have it. They're great.
Keeps things cool, all that stuff. Yeah. So I drink out of a Yeti on a Tuesday night for sure. Yeah.
I'm really mad that I can't remember the name of it. I think, it's High Camp Flasks. Are you familiar with this company?
Oh, those are great. Yes, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This was, I have not posted about it on Instagram yet. They sent me, they've got this new thing where like it fits a whole bottle of wine and then on either end, it's their cups and they're stainless steel. And it was like, I think that the ad said it was like sommelier grade stainless steel. I was like, what does that even mean?
What does that mean?
And so I brought it on the boat and I was blown away because I'm a Yeti queen. I love Yeti and I have those tumblers. And then I use the High Camp flask situation. Game changer. Highly recommend it. Like to me, this is like the gift to give at the holidays if you're looking for something great. It kept the wine cold, but there was something about those cups in particular that I was like, I love how this drinks. I loved how the flask poured. It was great. So yes, I think especially if like, I'm not going to tell you to drink wine at your kid's soccer game, but like,
it's happening. I think we know it's happening. And I just want to say, not to plug for Yeti, but like they are starting to make their, some of their cups with a ceramic interior. So you don't have not that you taste metal, but I think sometimes I do. And so now that you can get it with like the ceramic interior, it's changed my Yeti wine drinking game. Not that I drink it at soccer games, but I mean, but whatever.
You're just, it's your job. It's your work. You just research. You're just a multitasking kind of mom.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Fastest way to chill a bottle, because I know time is of the essence.
So, I mean, I learned this from my friend at Whole Foods. I take a bucket, fill it with ice and water, put a little bit of salt in it. Yeah.
And I think some people are like, I don't have a bucket. Your mixing bowl will work just as well. So like,
if you're mixing cake, stuff to make a cake, that's perfect.
That's also suitable. But yeah, I mean, I've even been known to like throw it in the freezer, like in with where the ice is. Also, just don't forget about it.
Especially if it's bubbles.
Especially if it's bubbles. Yes. Yeah. You definitely want to make sure you get your bubbles cold. That's kind of the most important part of drinking bubbles is that they're cold. Jessica, this has been so much fun. Tell me what's going on in your world. Where can people find you?
Let's see. You can find me at jessicadupuy.com. On Instagram, I am Jessica N as in Norman Dupuy, because someone else has Jessica Dupuy. Oh. And I know. It's fine. But I will be honest, like my Instagram's a little bit lagging right now because I'm finishing up a book, and I feel like this hour has been awesome because it's been a break from working on it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I feel like I've been in a little bit of a cave. But that's okay. I'm about to crawl out of it. We're sending it to press in a couple weeks. So
yay. Well, congratulations. Books that people can shop for that are authored by you.
So we've mentioned the Southern Living ones. So United Tastes of Texas, United Tastes of the South. But we've talked about Uchi with Tyson Cole. The Salt Lick is a barbecue place in Texas that's kind of got a little bit of nice lore and history to it. And then there's a chef out of Atlanta named Ford Fry. And he has a number of restaurants in the Atlanta area that are fantastic. He and I did a Tex-Mex cookbook together. And then finally, I did write a book about the wines of the Southwest. So Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. So if you're curious about kind of these burgeoning unknown regions in the US, that is something that you could check out.
Amazing. So many great resources to cover all of your delicious ventures, which is great. Thank you so much for taking a break from what is, I'm sure, a very busy time for you between back to school and writing a book and traveling and doing all those things. So I very much appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And if it's okay, I probably should mention that one. So it's a book on Italian wine, which is why but yeah, it's called Italianity. It'll be out in April 2026. So check that out when it does get here.
Well, congratulations early in advance. I will link everything as always below where you can find Jessica and all of her various books and projects. For those of you who are not members of the Wine Access Unfiltered podcast, Wine Club, you can find everything you need to join in the description below. It's $120 plus tax, including shipping, and you get 10% off all of your Wine Access purchases. All of the wines are selected by myself and the Wine Access team. We have a lot of fun doing it. And oftentimes it's little gems that we find when we're traveling the globe, like the one we have today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, we will see you soon. Jessica, cheers to you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
My pleasure.